I read a lot of poetry back in the 70s. To take you all the way back, I had an English teacher named Kirsten Vandervoort, who my senior year taught me to love poetry. Because like most Americans, I kind of hated it by senior year. It's like that thing Billy Collins said about, in schools they strap poems to the chair and beat it with a hose to get the meaning out of it.
Yeah.
And so like most Americans, I pretty much hated poetry, but she taught me to love it. And we're reading like Wallace Stevens and
Yeah.
Dylan Thomas and stuff like that. So and so I kept reading it in college, and then one day I happened to be reading um, Lord Byron, reading in Don Juan and enjoying it. I mean, Byron's a great. I haven't read him for years, but I remember he's a great rhymer. He rhymes so beautifully. It's like conversation that rhymes. It's
Yes.
just he's
Yes.
he's a beautiful, beautiful poet. And anyway, so I was reading Don Juan, and he rhymed gunnery with nunnery, and I thought, what? That is so cheap, man! I can't believe it. And you mean like great poets can do cheap things like that? And then it hit me as like, wow, anybody can do this. And that was my that
That
was
was
my
your moment.
that was my moment. And I was like, wow, you know, I can do crap like that. I mean, just just as good as he can. So I started scribbling out poetry, just tons and tons of it. I scribbled and scribbled. I wrote reams and reams of poetry, and almost all of it's lost. And I suppose most of it wasn't that good. It's just but I wrote tons and tons of poetry and rarely sent it out. Once in a while I did. I got very little published though, and but I just kept writing it, writing it, writing it. So this was like so I did that probably until like the early 90s, and by then I got married in 88. So by the early 90s I was busy paying for working to pay for the family and raising kids, and I just didn't really have much time for writing, and I probably could have made time for it, but I didn't feel I was called to. I thought God wanted me out of
Oh,
the I thought God wanted me out of the field at that point. So, all right, Lord, you know, and so I dropped it for I don't know, probably 10 years or so, something like that. And then sometime in the 2000s, I can't remember the dates exactly to tell you, but sometime in the 2000s, I was like praying one day. I don't know if you're religious at all, but I was praying one day and I was like, Lord, it was a Sunday and I was praying like, Lord, I really would like to get back into poetry. Is that all right? I mean,
mm,
can I do that? And I went to church that day, and the minister was talking about a poem from the podium. He was talking about um,
wow.
yeah, the lead kindly light poem by Bishop Newman.
Right.
And it's a yeah, and I thought, well, that if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. So I began to write again in maybe the earlier, maybe the mid 2000s, maybe the earlier mid 2000s. But it's just kind of the stuff I wrote was kind of just kind of crappy. I mean, I still wrote reams and reams at that point though, but
Mhm.
I just didn't like what I was doing. And then I
Would you
read,
describe that? I'm sorry. Would you describe it as like journaling, or
um,
were you submitting it all?
yeah, and I would occasionally get a poem published, and yeah, it was kind of like I was kind of trying to work at my life problems on the page though. And
Mm,
so it was pretty intense. I mean, it was like,
yeah.
hey, get into my intense problems with me in my head.
Right.
Let me share my issues with you at a really vivid level, which is not
I
really
think
like
I think all poets we've got books of those, so I think you
yeah,
have
yeah,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's not really all that enjoyable for readers to read that. It's like, okay, I don't think I want to, I'd rather watch a Spider-Man movie or something like that. So
Right.
it's like with a poem, it's like you're meeting somebody at a bus stop and you've got 2 minutes of their time that they're graciously going to give you. You don't want to dump all your crap on them. You want to just kind of tease out a little bit and try and give them something that's valuable. In other words, and this was the key thing with Ted. So don't make this about yourself, the poet. Make it about the reader. It's like
Mhm.
I, I was just blown. And see, because all my training in English, all my years in English, it had all been about like the poet's a genius. We need to study what he means. We need to do exegesis. We need to like do close readings, critical thinking, all that stuff. So we can understand his genius or her genius, but their
Right.
genius. But we weren't like saying. I mean, like I think a lot of people don't even like poetry, even at the graduate school level. I think a lot of people don't.
Yes.
They study, but they don't even like it. I don't think. I mean, maybe. I really enjoyed this poem. You almost never hear that in grad school. I mean,
Yeah.
I stumbled across this maybe about 2009 or 2010. I stumbled across Goblin Fruit. I think it was
Yes.
2009 when I found Goblin Fruit, and
Yeah.
I just loved what those guys are doing. I mean, I really love that stuff.
Is that
And
when your speculative journey, would you say that it started there, or were you
yeah,
writing things that
yeah,
were
it started.
speculative before?
Yeah, it definitely it started then. I mean, I hadn't
Mm.
really done mostly done kind of literary stuff at that point, kind of the stuff. I mean, kind of echoing the stuff I'd seen in
Well,
the
there is an
books I'd read.
argument that's, like, like we can just by exposure to speculative poetry, we can bring literary poets into the fold to make amazing.
That was what yeah. So I gave up my literary ways and at least the literate at least the main part of my literary background. I stopped trying to I stopped trying to be a genius and stopped trying and
Mm.
started trying writing poetry that I love and that I hope readers would love. And that was the switch.
So that was your main takeaway. Like when you talk about the Poetry Home Repair Manual,
Yeah.
that was it's about the reader.
It's about the reader, and it's not about like creating this Rorschach test to sort of let the reader sort of dump their lifestyle on top of it or whatever. It's about communicating with people. It's about
Mhm.
heart to heart or mind to mind or something.